King Olympi casted a glance at Ananti and I again and said, "I think both of you like each other. If you decide to get married, you have my blessing." I almost screamed because that is a big deal in Ososland. The king's blessing is regarded as a success seal on marital union in the land. I smiled happily and thanked His Highness as I tried to rise up from the bed. I observed Ananti just smiled a bit, and I was momentarily disturbed. It's possible that Ananti has a suitor, or maybe she's betrothed already, I said to myself. Immediately, I decided to take the bull by the horn, and in the presence of the king, I officially asked Ananti to marry me. She just smiled and covered her face. The king simply got up immediately in a bid to excuse himself from two lovebirds. As he was about going out, he suddenly stopped as if a thought crossed his mind. He then said, "Ananti, let me see you briefly." Ananti said, "Yes, Your Highness," and immediately walked towards him. Both of them then exit the room, and I was left alone. While alone, I got lost in thoughts, daydreaming what my wedding day will look like. From there I started imagining what our children will look like. Will they resemble Ananti or they will look like me? I was all smile and subsequently managed to get out of the bed again. There's nothing like being in love with the right person. I truly love Ananti, I said to myself, smiling. Somehow, my eyes looked towards the hourglass, the book, and the key on top of the table. I can't explain why, but I just sensed I should touch the hourglass and examined it a little. While I was doing this, lightning just started coming out of the hourglass, and despite the fact that I was afraid of what was happening and I tried to drop the hourglass on the table, it got stuck to my hand. Ananti seemed to be somehow connected to the hourglass. I observed that she rushed into the room, followed by the king when the hourglass started giving off the lightning. As they both entered, the key flew into the air, entered the book with lock, and subsequently opened it. What happened next was very difficult to believe. Immediately, the little book enlarged greatly, and we all observed that from the book, a road that led into a city appeared. It was after this happened that I realized that I could pull off the hourglass from my hand. We all looked dazed, but at a Paunanon said, "It seems we are to follow the road and enter the street that leads out from the book into the city." I was afraid to go first, but Ananti, been more daring, made a move to go in, but to our amazement, it was as if her leg got stuck to the spot where she was standing. She could not move at all. After few trials, King Olympi tried to move his leg and realized he could move. As such, he stepped on the book and followed the path. I tried too, and I observed that I could move my legs. While we were both standing in the midst of path that lead out from the book, Ananti said, "It seems it's only the king and I that are meant to embark on the journey." This is true because we observed that as we moved forward a little bit, the book closed, leaving Ananti, on the other side, in the palace room. The king immediately suggests that we should look around and note the landmarks, so that it will be easy for us to know where we started from. The king and I followed the path that we observed inside the book, and it linked up with a thick forest path. After walking for few minutes in the fort, we came across two paths. Initially, we contemplated splitting up, but later we realized that it's better for us to stay together. The king suggests that we should pick lots of stones and drop them along the way so that it will be easy for us not to lose our track, and we did. "Your Highness, I sense we will need to call Ananti again when we get back to where we started," I said. He simply said, "Maybe," and continued to walk. The path that we chose led us to a hut, inside which we did not see anyone but a giant pot filled with water. While King Olympi was looking around, out of curiosity, I draw closer to the pot of water and look inside. The water instantly experienced ripples. Immediately, the history of my life history was played before me, from the time that I was born until just before the book opened. One aspect of what I saw in the water that was not clear to me was the fact that, after my birth and my mother died, I was carried into the forest and dropped by the side of an iroko tree. I was then found in the forest by a hunter who brought me home and then handed me over to his wife to nurse me as their son. That hunter was Attila, the man I knew and regarded as my father. I was wondering about what I saw when the king drew close to me, and I called his attention to the strange revealing power that the water hath. He asked me to excuse him, which I did. Afterwards, he moved close to the water in the pot. As he looked at the water, suddenly there was a ripples, and after this, a vision of his life was played before him too. After a few minutes, he bowed down his head and said we should go back. In his words, King Olympi said, I believe I have seen all I need to see and I know the reason why we came here. We traced the stone that we dropped on the way to mark out path back to where we bust out into the city. Somehow we know all we need to do is to call Ananti. After doing this, we saw the same path that led us into that city suddenly opened up again and we followed it back home, into the room where we were before embarking on the journey. The king became very moody afterwards. He came back and for the rest of the day, he excused himself from seeing anyone. I sense he saw something that disturbed him. I made up my mind that I will not tell Ananti what I saw. Neither did she compel me to tell her. The following morning, all the chief assembled at the palace, and the queen mother was present. I observed from my quarters that they had a heated session and afterwards, the queen was led away from the palace, weeping, along with the two sons of the king. Afterwards, I was summoned to the royal hall where the king, the queen mother, and all the chief were present. I entered their midst trembling, and after what seemed like eternity, the king motioned for me to sit down. I observed that Ananti came in almost immediately. Oslok, do you know what I saw in the waters? No, your highness, I said, making obeisance at the same time. He continued to tell me what everyone except Ananti and I are aware of. He said he discovered that I am his son after looking into the waters that we saw in the pot. I laughed hysterically. That cannot be, as I spoke out loudly and looked at Ananti. I quickly cautioned myself because I am before the king and his chiefs. He said, your real mother happened to be Abinta, my second wife. I was told she died at childbirth. I actually saw her dead body, and I was told she gave birth to twins. I was very sorrowful because I love her a lot, but the twins that she left behind became my consolation. Unknown to me, the first queen, who is not conceive and have no child even till now, connive with the royal nurse, who is presently late, to throw you away immediately your mother gave birth to you. When I looked into the waters, I discovered that the twins she compelled the nurse to present by my children are not my children. I then relate what I saw in the waters too, to him, and that became the seal of all that he has been saying. But my mother, the person I got to know as my mother, never said anything to me along that line. I said to the king. Just then, the royal hall opened and the person that I grew up knowing to be my mother came in, ran towards me, and we hugged each other. It was her open testimony that totally sealed up what the king said. Through an unfortunate even have been kidnapped by the slave traders, the secret of over 3 decades was exposed. All things surely work together for good. I took up my position as the prince and the heir to the throne immediately, and the queen mother did her best to over-pamper me. Few weeks later, I got married to Ananti, the love of my life and the woman of my dream, and we were blessed with a set of twin. My father, King Olympi I of Ososoland, was extremely happy seeing me and his grandchildren few months later. He still lived for over 2 decades after this incident.